Welcome once again to Receiving Noor weekly Quran study. We're continuing to study Surah Al-Mulk, reflecting with Dr. Yamina, and we are at verse 19, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair, Dr. Yamina. And as usual, you're welcome to join in with your comments or questions during Dr. Yamina's discourse, or you can save them till the end as well. Jazakumullah khair, Sister Yamina.
Thank you, Isra. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. So we stopped at Ayah 18, which means that today, inshallah, we start from Ayah 19. But just to remind ourselves of the context of where we're coming from, I'll start from Ayah 15, just the translation, inshallah, so we get an idea where we stopped the last week, inshallah. So in Ayah 15, we were told, it is who has made the earth submissive to you, so walk in all its regions and eat of his provision, and bear in mind that unto him is the resurrection. وَكُلُوا مِنْ رِزْقِهِ وَإِلَيْهِ النُّشُورِ. In Ayah 16, we're told, can you ever feel secure that he who is in heaven will not cause the earth to swallow you up with a violent shudder? Or can you ever feel secure that he who is in the heaven will not unleash a torrent of stones upon you? Soon you shall know what my warning means. And the last one was Ayah 17. In Ayah 18, we were told, and indeed, those who lived before them denied, and how terrible was my requital. Now in Ayah 19, we're told, do they not see the birds above them spreading their wings and folding them? None holds them except the most compassionate. Truly, he watches over everything. I'll carry on until 22. So we get an idea, and then we'll start back from Ayah 19, inshallah. So do they not see the birds above them spreading their wings and folding them? None holds them except the most compassionate. Truly, he watches over everything. Who is he beside the most compassionate that can be a host for you, who may help you? The disbelievers are in nothing but delusion. Who is it that will provide for you if he withholds his provision? Nay, but they persist in insolence and aversion. Who is more rightly guided? One who walks with his face stooped down, or the one who walks upright on a straight path? Say, it is he who has brought you into being and has endowed you with hearing and sight and hearts, yet little do you give thanks. Say, it is he who has multiplied you on the earth, and it is unto him that you shall be gathered. Subhanallah. There is a full circle. We come, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We are being created right now, and our end is unto him. So in Ayah 19, astaghfirullah, we're told, أَوَلَمْ يَرَوْا إِلَى الطَّيْرِ فَوْقَهُمْ صَافَّاتٍ وَيَقْبِضْنَ مَا يُمْسِكُهُنَّ إِلَّا الرَّحْمَنُ إِنَّهُ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ بَصِيرٌ. So it may seem like the topic is changing suddenly. Suddenly now we are asked to look at the birds above us. But remember, this surah from the very beginning is about warning. But the warning, we talked about the warning itself being rahmah. But in this surah, it's not only that the warning is rahmah, but we are warned with rahmah. We are reminded again and again of the rahmah that surrounds us, the blessings, the gifts of rahmah that we are gifted with, we are blessed with. And we are asked to look carefully. فارجع البصر هل ترى من فطور. Look carefully. Do you see anything, any deficiency in the creation? And so it's not only we are warned, but warned mostly with Rahman. And that's why you see that the name of God, Rahman, is repeated again and again. And in ayah 19, we're told, do they not see the birds above them spreading their wings and folding them? None holds them except the most compassionate. Truly, he watches over everything. So we're being warned against mindlessly investing the life that is given to us. And in some ayah that will come later, 23 or 24, we are told that we were given hearing and sight and hearts and all these things for a particular purpose, but often, and the ultimate purpose is to know our Rabb and be grateful for him and to get ready for our eternal life. But often we mindlessly invest the life that is given to us in this passing worldly life, and forget about the lasting face of God, which Allah, and forgetting that we are destined to leave this world for an enduring one. So we don't live with the awareness that this life is transient, that we are on a journey. And that's why the surah starts with telling us who God is, and then God making himself known to us through his creation. And if you remember in ayah 3 and 4, we were asked to look at the creation around us. And again, it was ما ترى في خلق الرحمن من تفاوت. It was the creation of the most compassionate. And now again, very mercifully, very compassionately, we're given yet another opportunity to ponder, to reflect over who our Rabb is. And we're being asked to behold the birds as they fly, because they are signs to his power, his wisdom, his knowledge, and his compassion. Because the outcome of that knowledge and power of wisdom is always very beautiful and full of compassion to those creatures, to the birds themselves, and also to us, in sometimes in direct ways, sometimes in indirect ways. So here we are asked to behold the birds as they soar in the sky and resisting the law of gravity, and they easily fly in the sky for hours, and at time actually when they're migrating from place to place, sometimes to very remote places, they can even fly for weeks or months in rows, subhanallah. And we are told here they actually, what are they called? صافات أولم يروا إلى الطير فوقهم صافات ويقبضن. So صافات here usually translated as spreading their wings. It also can mean the way the flocks of birds are arranged. They follow a particular order. So when the order and the spreading of the wings, an active participle is used, but for the folding of the wings, a verb is used. And that's actually interesting. It's the language itself is full of subtle signs, subtle ayat that lead us to reflect in a particular way. They give us cues. So safat is an active participle. It's a noun, and it's used
time. Who wants to share things that that we seem to do, like here with the breathing that Sister Yamina also always mentions, and Isra reminded of us, and here with the flying. What are things that happen that you think that you are the one who's doing it, that that you are in control of, that if it wasn't for you, it wouldn't happen that way? MashaAllah.
Dr. Yamina is back, but if
Okay.
anyone has anything to share, please go ahead.
Mm-hmm. I was just thinking, yep, we can finish the discussion after. Let's go back as long as we have Sister Yamina go.
Yeah, she's back, alhamdulillah. Please, Dr. Yamina.
Sorry about that. It was my internet connection. Inshallah. It is to remind us that we are totally under his control. Alhamdulillah. So the ayah here is telling us to look at the at birds and how they spread their wings and they fold them, and then we are asked that we are told that none other than the most compassionate holds them up there. And when we look at the birds, subhanallah, their flying is a miracle in many senses. And also birds fly in a varieties of ways. They glide, they soar, they flap, they spread their wings, and at the same time, there are different birds that fly in different ways. So one bird has different patterns of flying, and also different birds will follow different patterns. So some birds flutter and then spread their wings. Others, like sparrows, they flutter for some times. When they reach the required speed, they fold in their wings and dive in the air. And they're birds that are very interesting and tiny birds, the hummingbirds. They can hover and they can fly from right to left and left to right, and they can even fly backward. Actually, I think it's the only known birds that can fly backwards, as far as we know, of course. And unlike other birds, they rotate their wings, subhanallah. And because they're tiny, maybe, they're made to flap, they beat their wings very, very fast, like from 50, and some kinds of hummingbirds, up to 80 times in a second, in one single second, subhanallah. And another amazing thing about birds is that they migrate to very far places in the 4 seasons. And so they soar for long periods of time without falling down and without colliding with each other. They follow the flock, it follows a particular pattern, and they just go together. And that makes their flying even easier. They follow a particular patterns and aerodynamic shape. So the more we look at them, the more we uphold or behold the creation of birds and how they are made to fly. Subhanallah, we cannot not ask who creates them in such that they easily soar in the sky. Who provides them with the power to fly, and who trains them to fly, and especially to fly in flocks in particular shapes, and who sustains them in their long flights, for instance, when they are migrating, and who guides them into those long flights to their destination. They go for months sometimes, soaring above forests, mountains, oceans, to reach their destinations. How do they know who is guiding them there? And so the more we look carefully at, in this particular example, at birds and study them, as we were told in Ayah 3, فارجع البصر هل ترى من فطور, the more we'll witness how fascinating their creation is. For instance, their anatomy, their bodies are lighter in weight than other animals. And this is necessary for them to move up in the air, so that there is less gravity is working against them and help them in flying. And the bird's weight is also focused towards the center of their bodies, and so they don't have too much weight on the sides, on the and the front and the back of their bodies, so it becomes easier to keep their balance, which they need in order to fly. Subhanallah. I mean, something that came up from an egg. They have no idea. I mean, we have no idea how we've been made and shaped in a particular form, and so do the birds. So how are they made so light? Well, our bones are thick and heavy, but the bird's bones are made hollow, so they are empty on the inside, which means, again, less weight. And they are also equipped with very light feather, and the feather had other functions as well. And subhanallah, mother birds don't carry their babies in their bodies like mammals, for instance, but instead they lay eggs, so they remain light. Again, there is wisdom, there is knowledge, there is power, there is compassion in all this. The more we look at the creation, the more we see the reflection of the divine names of their creator, their Rabb, their sustainer. And together with their anatomy, the diet of the birds also contribute to making their flying easy. Subhanallah, he's the mudabbir. So the more we observe the creation of the birds and their flying, the more we realize that they are ayat, they are signs to their makers, their creators, their rabbus, wisdom, his knowledge, his power, his being, the mulk being his. Remember in the very beginning, تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير. It's clear that he has power over everything. He controls everything. And also they are ayat, signs to his compassion and mercy. And we can carry on with different beautiful names of God, al-Asma al-Husna. At the end, if we are sincerely not being brainwashed, but and not arrogantly claiming that we are independent of our Rabb, because if we imagine ourselves to be independent of our Rabb and we claim our actions and everything to ourselves, then we will be more inclined to attribute and ascribe all these qualities to the birds themselves or to something outside in nature. And we want to see the rahmah, the compassion, the reflection of the beautiful names of our Rabb reflected in this beautiful creation. We want see how they are being sustained in a beautiful and compassionate way. And that's why the ayah ends, the ayah 19 ends with, it says, مَا يُمْسِكُهُنَّ إِلَّا الرَّحْمَنِ. None holds them except the most compassionate. Clearly, look at them, you will understand that only the most compassionate can hold them up there. This is his rahmah. And why? Because إِنَّهُ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ بَصِيرٌ. He is the one who watches over everything. So only the most compassionate can hold them, because also not only he watches over everything, but this is ayah 19. In ayah 1 we were told وَهُوَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. He's powerful over all things. Then we were told he alone is almighty, all forgiving. وَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْغَفُورُ. In Ayah 13, we were told, إِنَّهُ عَلِيمٌ بِذَاتُ الصُّدُورِ. He knows, he has full knowledge of whatever is happening, whatever is in the hearts. And he's all aware of the needs of his creatures and accordingly provides them with whatever needed means and different faculties. In Ayah 14, أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ وَهُوَ اللَّطِيفُ الْخَبِيرُ. And in Ayah 15, we were told, هُوَ الَّذِي جَعَلَ لَكُمُ الْأَرْضَ ذَلُولًا. So he made the earth, gave it to our, put it at our service. And so it is also for the birds. It includes them as well. It's been made a place of easy to live for them. The way they are made, their bodies, their anatomy, their food, the air, the atmosphere, everything is cooperating together to make their life easy, their flying beautiful and easy. And that is a sign to his power, to his being in control of everything, to the beauty of his names, of his power, the beauty of his knowledge, the beauty of his compassion. So another thing that I felt with this when I was reflecting on this ayah was birds are fragile creatures and yet they fly in the air. And the air, for some reason, I personally feel is an environment where I don't feel safe. So I feel like we don't feel safe. Like we feel safer on Earth because, okay, generally it's more stable, less safe in water, but we feel the most vulnerable in the air because it feels like if anything happens, we can't do anything. We'll just fall and drop. So we feel helpless. There is no safety, like for instance, on the land, the earth is carrying us. In water also, somehow to a certain extent, water carries us. But air, it's not as obvious. And another area is that, okay, we can fly in the air, but we have to get on a plane. So this plane, it takes lots of efforts and a lots of thinking and a lots of decades and centuries of knowledge being all used together to make a plane. And even when we're human beings are making a plane, they are using all the abilities that are given to them, and we have to also follow the laws of creation. Yet, and we're so proud, oh, human being, and it can, for some people, it can be a means of being arrogant because human being can make a plane. And now we are told it takes you all these efforts using what you are given to make that plane. Yet a tiny bird achieves this amazing feat in a much easier way, much more elegant way. Subhanallah. There's no fuel needed or all those kind of things and accidents, and the engine something can happen to it. And yet this bird, it's a bird. I mean, even in English, what do we say? Bird brain means stupid, means shallow. So this creature that you think is stupid, look, so it becomes transparent. It's like water being used, lifeless water that has nothing, doesn't even have a color, doesn't have a shape. And yet it is used in the giving of the most precious thing, life. And here also this bird that, doesn't have like a complex brain according to us, and we belittle it like this is a small tiny creature, but it is made to reflect this amazing skills, this amazing power, this amazing knowledge and wisdom and compassion. Subhanallah. So it's very humbling. It's humbling because the whole experience of flying in the air reminds us of our vulnerability. And also it is humbling because what the tiny bird is achieving, in a sense, is made to achieve, is something that we can achieve at a very, we can't compare. It takes us a lots of effort to do it, and we don't do it in the way a hummingbird does it, for instance. Subhanallah. In Surah Al-Nahl, we're also told something similar with about the birds. We're told that do they not look at the birds made subservient in mid-air? None holds them except God. Truly, in that there are signs, ayat, for people who believe. And that's why I use the word signs, because in the Quran, somewhere else, in this passage, for instance, in Surah Al-Nahl, Surah 16, we are told that the fact that the birds are made to fly and they can remain up there in the sky without falling, the one who is hop, that is a sign, that is an ayah to the beautiful names of God. It's a sign of God. It's in Surah 16, ayah 79. But if we start from ayah 78, it's interesting. The ayah that comes before this tells us, and God has brought you forth from your mother's wombs, knowing nothing, and he has endowed you with hearing and sight and hearts, so that you might be grateful. Do they not look at the birds made subservient in mid-air? None holds them except God. Truly, in that there are signs for people who believe. So you can see the context of why are we told to look at the birds? Because we tend to forget our own creation. So we are being asked to reflect on something out there and then come back inside and make istighfar and say, realize that their Rabb, the Rabb of the bird is my Rabb. Like he's sustaining them out there, but so is he sustaining me right now. And as Alia was mentioning, the breathing, who is sustaining our breathing right now? Because it seems like I am walking because the earth seems to be stable, but as we were told in earlier ayat, yes, but the same earth that is made, that is given to your service and it's stable and carries you, it can also be made to swallow you up. What can you do? So we stop taking things for granted. This is an invitation to keep asking. We are taught to ask questions, and these questions are all to guide us to find our Rabb. So we are taught to ask the right questions that would lead us to know who our Rabb is and take us out of the darkness, the slumber of our ghafla, of our forgetfulness. So it's interesting saying, it is God has brought you forth from your mother's womb. Like, we didn't do anything. We have no clue how and we all know by looking at other babies being born, they're born with nothing. They can't do anything. They're totally helpless. Lo and behold, we grow up and start forgetting and start becoming arrogant. The delusion of forgetfulness is really dangerous. And he says, so he's the one who endowed you with hearing. Just because we were born, there is no guarantee that you can hear or see, and hearts and the emotions, because with those emotions are they have a vital role in our living, and not only they help us in living and thriving at the same time. And all this is being given to us so that we might be grateful. Yet he says, as we are told, we will be told in I think 22, 23, seldom you are grateful. And so in order to remember our own creation, we are asked in Surah Al-Nahl to look at the birds. In Surah Al-Nahl, in ayah 79 of Surah 16, we are told they are made مسخرات. ألم يروا إلى الطير مسخرات في جو السماء. So they are made submissive. Whereas in ayah 18 we are told أولم يروا إلى الطير فوقهم صافات ويقبضن. So the beginning is the same. Both of them start with أولم. Do they not see the birds above them? But one of them is they are made submissive in Surah Al-Nahl. In Surah Al-Mulk, we are given a description of how they are flying, what's happening. Because in Surah Al-Nahl, the main theme is to affirm the oneness of God. So Musakharat is mentioned. In Surah Al-Mulk, in this surah, it's about showing us the magnificence of God's compassion, of His rahmah, and calling us unto Him. And of course, the beauty of His rahmah, we are going to see it in the creation. And in this case, the beauty of the birds spreading and folding their wings is being emphasized. And that's why the language used in ayah 19 is very imagery. You can almost like see the birds in front of you. The words used are very evoking of an imagery of birds going around. Not the case in Surah Al-Nahl, for instance. But in both, and in Surah Al-Nahl, we are told مَا يُمْسِكُهُنَّ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. None upholds them, the birds, except God. Whereas in Surah Al-Mulk, we are told مَا يُمْسِكُهُنَّ إِلَّا الرَّحْمَنِ. None upholds them except the most compassionate. So you can see that in this surah, Rahman is mentioned, and to show, to emphasize, to indicate the mercy of the one who has made so much, who has made these beautiful and amazing signs to his mercy for us to reflect on. So this surah has a strong emphasis on this attribute of God, Ar-Rahman, the most compassionate. It is repeated a few times. And from this is a sign. This repetition itself is a sign which reminds us that we are invited to witness his rahmah in his fascinating creation. In the next ayah, ayah 20, we are told, who is he beside the most compassionate that can be a host for you, who may help you? The disbelievers are in nothing but delusion. أَمَّنْ هَذَا الَّذِي هُوَ جُنْدٌ لَكُمْ يَنْصُرُكُمْ مِنْ دُونِ الرَّحْمَنِ إِنِ الْكَافِرُونَ إِلَّا فِي غُرُورٍ. So again, you see how these questions are guiding us to reflect on who our sustainer is. We're asked who or what, who can help you apart from God, who can help you apart from the Rahman, from the most compassionate. Again, the word used is and so it brings us back to what we were told in Ayah 15. In Ayah 15, we were told that the earth were made submissive to us. So go and kulu min rizqih, eat from his provision. And then we were told that even things that are made subservient to us in order to make our life easy, like the earth, cannot help us. They are under his control alone. That was from the very beginning, Ayah 1, تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير. Blessed be in whose hands all sovereignty rests, since he is powerful over all things. Meaning everything, all the elements, water, wind, earth, the fire, the creation on which all life rests, is all being made subservient to us by their creator's permission, بإذنه. Yet, they can also be made into means of affliction. In Ayahs 16 and 17, if you remember, we were told, can you ever feel secure that he who is in heaven will not cause the earth to swallow you up with a violent shudder? The earth can quake and swallow everything up. Or in Ayah 17, can you ever feel secure that he who is in heaven will not unleash a torrent of stones upon you? So it seems like the sky is safe and we breathe the air, but anything could fall from the sky. In other passages in the Quran, we're told the sky could fall upon you, and I talked about it. If the whole everything would fall upon us, because it feels like it's void, but actually there is matter there. So if it falls upon us, there is going to be no life on earth. Everything will be destroyed. And so here in Ayah 16 and 17, we were told to ponder, to reflect, to not take things for granted, that someone, don't you see that they are under the command of their sustainer, and that they obey their sustainer alone. They don't obey us. We can't, even when we do something on earth, we construct something, we have to follow the rules of creation. We can't do things haphazardly. It doesn't work. If we build a building without following the rules of creation, it will just collapse. And yet, despite these repeated calls to reflect on the reality of existence and its purpose, to reflect on how our sustenance, rahmah, encompasses everything. Everything that is given to us is a manifestation of his rahmah, is a reflection of his compassion. Some people, we're told, remain stubborn in their arrogance and delusion. They refuse to see the reality and acknowledge it. In al-kafiruna illa fi ghurur. And so consequently, their delusion, their arrogance veil their intellect. They cannot reason properly because they stubbornly insist on seeing things through their own distorted perception. And that's what will come in the next ayah, ayah 21. So here in ayah 20, we are, again, there is reference to God as Rahman, the most compassionate. So not only we're invited to reflect in different ways on different creations, the earth, the sky, the seven heavens, the birds, but we also called onto the compassionate. We're asked to see his blessing. We're asked to see the gifts of his rahmah, and then to realize that his rahmah encompasses us. And what's more, like deep down, everyone knows that there is no one other than him they can turn for help. So we're told in ayah 20, who is he beside the most compassionate that may help you? And this deep down, people, when they are in danger, when they're in crisis, they will call on to someone, one. the powerful one, the one who has power over everything, even those who deny God, because deep down, everyone knows, the fitra knows. So they know that there is no one other than him they can turn for help. So why not go to him? Why not take refuge into the most compassionate and seek his help? And subhanallah, while we are being warned, God is not saying God, but the compassionate, because it's easier to go back to the compassionate. So can you see how the warning is made compassionate, and it's made beautiful, and it's made easy onto those who are seeking the path of easiness, the path of rahmah. And how can then anyone be so deluded and reject this reality of rahmah when what we need the most as human beings is rahmah? Subhanallah. The word used, ghurur, is delusion. So delusion is being convinced that something is good for us when in fact it's harmful. Not only that, but it's harmful not because it's clearly so people are convinced that something is good for them when it's harmful, but at the same time, it's not like there may be some indication that they are deluded and deceive themselves, but actually, if they look, if they are reasonable, it's called a delusion because everything, the reality is indicating the opposite. The reality is telling them actually that it is harmful for them, but they don't want to look at it. They pick on one or two indications and they want to distort the way they look at it, and they say it's good. And one very obvious thing that we all do is we take out of the equation the most important thing, that death is haq, al-mawtu haq, and that the distance between us and death is like nothing. We can die any time. We don't deny that we are going to die, but we forget, we don't want to, it's not like we deny it, but we don't accept it in the sense that we take it seriously. We act as if it's not part of our reality. The reality is we are all going to die, and that we can die anytime. So if this is the reality, would we be doing the same thing in the same way? Would we be, for instance, worrying about some things in the same way that we are worrying about them now? Small things can take up all our emotions, for instance, fill our heart totally, when actually, when I remember that I could die tomorrow, who cares about that small thing, passing thing? Then we would actually worry about what matters. So the biggest delusion, I think, is this: when we take death, the reality of death here and now, even then everything changes. The reality of death here and now, in the sense that, yes, we will die one day, we'll leave the world one day, but apart from that, we are in a state of living the world here and now all the time, in the sense that so far, everything is gone. This morning is not here. An hour ago is not here. That fact that we are in a state of returning to God is the reality that we tend to avoid and forget most of the time. When we forget that main reality, then everything else is upside down. It becomes a delusion. And when we add that, when we live with that reality, with the awareness of that reality, we're going to perceive things in a different way. We're going to approach life in a different, with a different attitude. Our emotions, our thoughts, everything is going to be affected by the reality that death is here and now. We are in a state of returning. The world, life is flowing. It is transient, it is passing, and we are on a journey. And the more we follow the guidance of the Quran, we will become, inshallah, we will have that certainty here and now of akhirah. When we see the rahmah encompassing everything in the creation right now, right here and now, that rahmah, we will see that it is eternal, it is enduring. And so is the world, the world where rahmah will manifest without veils, as in this world, is enduring. So we will have more and more certainty of the life to come, that the life to come, not only that there is life after death, but it is eternal and enduring. The more, and this is possible when we start witnessing the eternal, enduring, beautiful names in this world here and now. So I think this delusion is not talking only about the deniers totally who deny the existence of God, but it looks to us, and this message is for us. We are reading it right now. And this word ghurur is used often in the Quran, especially as part of the expression وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ, which means the life of this world is nothing but an enjoyment of self-delusion. And for instance, in Surah Al-Fatir, Surah 35, in Ayah 5, we are told, O people, surely God's promise is true, so let not the life of this world delude you. يا أيها الناس إن وعد الله حق فلا تغرنكم الحياة الدنيا ولا يغرنكم بالله الغرور. And do not let the deluder delude you about God. Subhanallah. And this is our biggest delusion. So those who are so deluded as to not turn towards their compassionate Rabb right now, here and now, in everything, as described, they are described as kafirun, which is translated often as disbelievers. But remember, when we looked at it's derived from the verb kafara, it actually means primarily those who cover the truth. In this case, they cover the truth of rahmah that is manifest everywhere in the creation, and they are therefore ungrateful. So one of the meanings of kafara is to be ungrateful, to cover the truth, to be ungrateful. And as a result, they are disbelievers. So they are not necessarily deniers, although the deniers are definitely in this group. That's why we are told, إِنِ الْكَافِرُونَ إِلَّا فِي غُرُورٍ. And the disbeliever, the ungrateful disbelievers are in nothing but delusion. So these deluded people, it's like they close their eyes to the reality of rahmah, and so they cannot see the light of divine guidance. They remain in their own bubble of falsehood, of self-deception. And that's why in Ayah 22, they are described as people who walk with their face stooped down close to the ground, meaning they don't see what's around them. In Ayah 22, we are told, أَفَمَنْ يَمْشِي مُكِبًّا عَلَى وَجْهِهِ أَهْدَى أَمَّنْ يَمْشِي سَوِيًّا عَلَى صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ. Who is more rightly guided, the one who walks with his face stooped down, or the one who walks upright on a straight path. So when you are upright, you see everything as it is. But when you walk with your face stooped down, close to the ground, that's what it means, mukibban, then you don't see anything. Next is ayah 21, and we're told there, أَمَّنْ هَذَا الَّذِي يَرْزُقُكُمْ إِنْ أَمْسَكَ رِزْقَهُ بَلْ لَجُّوا فِي عُتُوٍّ وَنُفُورٍ. Who is it that will provide for you if he withholds his provision? Like, what's this arrogance? Why do you forget your Rabb? Why do you imagine yourself to be independent? And we do imagine ourselves to be independent when we forget that this life is transient. Because this I repeat a lot, because it's repeated a lot in the Quran, and it's something very important. It's a vicious circle. We forget this reality because we don't want to surrender to the reality. And because we don't want to surrender, we see the world, we misperceive the world. And that misperception feeds on that arrogance and that delusion that we are somehow subsisting on our own, and so we don't really need our sustainer. Some of us think that we imagine that we need him from time to time, and some people, they don't need him at all, because they don't even, God is not in their perception of life at all. So the perception is, first, I imagine myself to be independent, and so somehow God created me, and now I am living. So my life, it has a permanence, has a stability on its own, and I project this onto how I perceive the world around me, and it seems that things are persisting on their own. Everything is there. The birds are flying. Can't you see? I am walking. And it's only when there is an earthquake, if there is an earthquake in my life, because some of them, or an earthquake in metaphorical ways, that we say, oh, what's going on? And then, please, God, help me. But like, help me in a very narrow way, because I think I only need his help in that little interval of my life. The rest of it, I'm doing fine on my own, as if, astaghfirullah. And you can see how I perceive myself and how I perceive the world are related. It's parallel. And why do I perceive the world this way when the reality has nothing to do with it? The reality is I cannot even breathe on my own. I don't know how to talk on my own. I just intend to talk and it talks. I intend to understand and I understand. I intend to see and it sees. I am made to see. I am made to talk. I'm made to breathe. Even if I could breathe somehow, the air, I cannot control it. I cannot control how it goes into my body and out of it. How to inhale and exhale is beyond my power or my control. So the more we reflect, the more we realize that the reality is totally different. The reality is I am 24/7, constantly, all the time dependent on the creativity, the sustaining of someone else. And so the more, that's why this reflection is what makes me aware of being a abd. That's what a abd is, totally in need of his Rabb. And it is in the mirror of that ubudiyah that I can see and get to know who my Rabb is, and I get to appreciate his rububiyyah, because his rububiyyah is something flowing to me and to the creation constantly. And so not to be grateful is like, we'll be grateful. However, in all this, the first step when I reflect and understand how helpless and how weak and powerless I am, and how totally in need of my sustainer's gifting and sustaining I am, This is the first step. But in order to get to the second step, there is something very important going on there. That leap of faith, that acceptance, the choice, the intentional choice to accept this reality, to be at awe of the rububiyyah that I see manifested there, because I can see my helplessness and I don't like it and I don't accept it and I want to forget it and I want to cover it because it reminds me of my vulnerability and I don't want to acknowledge, so I don't get to acknowledge the rububiyyah. I don't get to feel the joy of being sustained by my Rabb, because in that petty, feels very petty, very foolish attitude. It's about me. How am I going to be? I'm not going to be vulnerable. I'm going to protect myself. How? By covering the truth, and as they say in Arabic, covering the sun with how do you call it? I forgot about. Anyway, I forgot the word. It's like, how can you cover something that's obvious? Just because I claim that I'm not dependent, I am not vulnerable, it does not make me that, subhanallah. So we spend all our life to create this false image of ourselves, and we try to convince other people around us when deep down we know it's not the truth. Everyone knows deep down that if they are not like that, no one is like that. And we lie to ourselves primarily, and we try to deceive ourselves and deceive others. And that's the illusion, that's the falsehood of the deluded. It's very foolish. So that step is very important. If we don't take that step of accepting that we are weak and vulnerable, we are totally dependent on someone else's rububiyyah, then the path towards ibadah, towards ubudiyyah won't be fulfilled. We will be stuck in the vicious circle, in the bubble of self-deception, of ghafla, going back to ghafla again and again. So we need to make the decision, the intentional decision. We choose to live with the reality. In the beginning, it's going to feel uncomfortable, even it hurts, because the wound is not a real wound. The wound is the wound of our imagination, because in my delusion, I gave everything to myself, and suddenly I realized that it is not me who is breathing, it's not me who is thinking, it's not me, I'm being made. So in the beginning, part of me, that deluded part of me, shouts and cries and says, no, I don't want this. But there is another part in us that knows the truth, that says, but this is the truth. And the more we surrender to this truth and accept it and make peace with it, the more we will realize that this is the only way that we can be saved from the misery of our innate vulnerability. Because yes, we are weak, but my Rabb is all powerful. Yes, anytime anything can happen to my memory, my knowledge, everything can be lost, but my Rabb is all-knowing. He is merciful. Even if I forget, he is merciful. That's what counts. And so we start reveling in who our Rabb is, because that's what counts, not who I am. And so who I am in reality as Abd becomes a beautiful mirror to the beauty of my Rabb, to the beauty of his rahmah, to the beauty of his beautiful names. It starts reflecting his beautiful names. And that is when the ruh, the heart, the human heart, gets satisfied and gets its itmi'nan. Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innu al-qulub. Otherwise, There is no fulfillment, there is no satisfaction, there is always fear and anxiety, because deep down, everyone knows the reality, and however much we try to cover it, there's no way to cover it. There's no way, because we don't have anything in ourselves to cover that reality. That bubble is a bubble of falsehood, it's a bubble of ghurur, of self-delusion. Subhanallah. And that is when, it is when we cover the truth that we start imagining the world to be constantly as if it's not passing, because we don't want anything to remind us of death, of our death means I cannot sustain myself. And so we stay away from that reality. So this is very, very important. And the path that is being offered to us is the path to mercy, to compassion. It's the path to true self-fulfillment. It is the only path that truly gives us peace and joy, and nothing else is worth, because everything else is passing and ephemeral. It's like a mirage. It's not worth it. And so that's why we are told in Ayah 21, who is it that will provide for you if he withholds his provision? And the word used here for provision is rizq. أَمَّنْ هَذَا الَّذِي يَرْزُقُكُمْ إِنْ أَمْسَكَ رِزْقَهُ. So you see, first, people often will attribute their provision to the earth, to all kinds of causes around them, to themselves. But in this ayah, we're reminded again that rizq belongs to him. He's the owner, since he's the one who creates the rizq through the earth, through all kinds of means, through the heavens. He sends water and everything. And again, we are guided to find who our Rabb is by asking us, teaching us to ask the right question. Who is it that will provide you if he withholds his provision? And the term provision here, rizq, it means anything. It includes anything that is beneficial. Whatever is beneficial is rizq. So the air we breathe is rizq. Our emotions are rizq. Our sustenance, our food, water, everything is rizq. So God provides us with rizq, yet we have no control over it. Alhamdulillah that we have no control over it, so that we can wake up to the reality. And the reality is that when we start walking in the path of ubudiyah, when we surrender to the reality, then we realize that everything has been made subservient to us. Everything has been given to our service. Why do we want to claim that we want to do everything ourselves when we can't? First, we can't. There's no way we can do it. Second, it is being done. So why not just be grateful and acknowledge the reality as it is? And the reality as it is way beyond anything we can imagine, way beyond anything we could achieve ourselves. So why be stubborn? Why just in order to say I did it when it is a lie? Why? Subhanallah. So the more we reflect, the more there is no reason not to be grateful to our Rabb. And here so we're asked, who is it that will provide for you if God, if the most compassionate withholds his rizq from you? And then we are told, بَلَّجُّوا فِي عُتُوٍّ وَنُفُورٍ. Very strong words are used here. They persist in insolence and arrogance and aversion. They avoid the truth. Utuhu here is to be insolent, to be arrogant, to disobey in an arrogant way. Utu. And nufur has a connotation of disgust, of avoiding the truth. And that attitude paves the way to rebellion, to disobedience, which in turn paves the way to hatred. That's why nufur also has a connotation of hatred, of strong dislike of something. And that's why they distance themselves from the truth. So after being presented with so many examples and warnings in the previous 20 ayat, if people still don't surrender and they still don't even consider reflecting on what is told to them, it means they're really stubborn in their misguided perception of who they are and what life is about. It means they're adamant in their denial of the truth. They're unwilling to listen. They're unwilling to question their views. Actually, we are told they have an aversion for the truth. They oppose it arrogantly and vehemently. That's what you understand from لَجُّوا فِي عُتُوٍّ وَنُفُورٍ. And لَجُّوا is the plural, they, لَجَّ is one. It's to insist on something arrogantly, stubbornly, persistently. So when the truth is presented to them, they are arrogant, they persist in their arrogance, they reject it, and they want to run away from it. They want to avoid it. They don't want to even consider it for various reasons. And the main one, of course, is all of them boil down to refusing to surrender to their Rabb. They want to pursue their own whims. They want to proclaim their own small rububiyyah, imagined rububiyyah. That's their illusion. من اتخذ إلهه هواه, we are told in the Quran. They take their own whims as their deity. They worship their whims. They live to fulfill their whims, to satisfy their whims. Astaghfirullah. So petty, so foolish. And this is because in their ghafla, or for some people in their denial, but we are concerned more with ghafla because that's what concerns us more. People often focus on the passing worldly life. And so they forget to seek the enduring face of God, wajhullah. And the wajhullah that aspect of things that looks to the eternal, beautiful names of God. And so they lose sight of God's rahmah. And instead, they don't see it as God's rahmah, they attribute it to other things, to themselves, to other causes. And that's why we are told in Ayah 23 that people are seldom grateful. In Ayah 23, we're told, say, it is He who has brought you into being and has endowed you with hearing and sight and hearts, yet little do you give thanks. قل هو الذي أنشأكم وجعل لكم السمع والأبصار والأفئدة قليلا ما تشكرون. Astaghfirullah. And as we remember in Surah Al-Shura, Surah 42, Ayah 36, we are told, and remember that whatever you are given is but for the passing enjoyment of life in this world, whereas that which is with God is far better and more enduring. وَأَبْقَى. It is given to those who believe and place their trust in their Rabb, in their sustainer. فما أوتيتم من شيء فمتاع الحياة الدنيا وما عند الله خير وأبقى للذين آمنوا وعلى ربهم يتوكلون. May Allah make us of those who believe and place their trust in their Rabb alone. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. آمين. والحمد لله رب العالمين. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ونتوب إليه عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. آمين. والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Jazakumullah khair, Sister Yamina, and Amin to your du'as. Is there anybody who would like to share a comment or ask a question at this time?
Hello?
Yes, Zara?
Oh, yeah. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Jazakallah khair, Sister Yamina. I had a question. So I have, let me see if I can articulate this. I've had conversations with people where they are of the belief that, yes, you know, God is in charge. God has all made the rules. And then their concept is like, God has made everything and put it in place. And, you know, it's not necessarily like God is micromanaging everything at that point, but it's been put in place. There's laws of nature. And that we as individuals, we have to do our daily effort. And I think it comes from individuals who maybe they come from a culture where they were surrounded by a lot of people who would just maybe kind of say like, leave it to God. And so I almost feel like this is kind of maybe in response to kind of a passive attitude that they were exposed to. But, you know, where does that come in? The idea of like, everything's set in motion by God. God has created everything, but he's not involved in the everyday. I always have a hard time like knowing how to respond to individuals when that's kind of brought up. I just wondering what your comments were. If this is something you hear a lot as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for the question. So actually, maybe the most common conception of who God is similar to what you just described, probably, and that's not the God as God he describes himself in the Quran, because most people do not deny the existence of God, and so, but they do not actually witness. They not do the witnessing. This witnessing, the shahada, is so important. Of course, it's going to have many stages, but there is a minimum of witnessing that is needed, and it is this witnessing that's going to make us, in order to be a Muslim, we have to make the shahada. And what are we witnessing? That there is no God but God. There is no, we're affirming divine unity. We're affirming Tawheed. So this Tawheed is not only that God is in charge and he created the laws at the beginning. That will be, if God is only that, then it's like God is the prime mover. In that understanding, God is not Rabb. And in the Quran, there is an emphasis on Rabb. So it's not only Tawheed of Uluhiyya, that God is one, but that he is the only Rabb. It means everything. He's the sustainer of whatever we think of. And this is possible to witness in the world to the extent that we are willing to surrender within ourselves. So in the beginning, we probably are not surrendering consciously, but at least we are not, how do you say, denying and resisting, resisting it intentionally. And what is that? Is that within ourselves, for instance, the fact that my breathing is right now being sustained is a sign to Rububiyyah, that the Rabb of my breathing is not me. That's what it means. That's the Tawheed of Rububiyyah. I'm affirming that through, and so if I can, when I witness this reality, because I'm not witnessing a particular event on its own, but this is part of a universal phenomenon, because all people breathe like me, so I can say and I can affirm and confirm that the one who sustains the breathing of all human beings is the same Rabb. And then all living creatures somehow breathe, and so he is also their sustainer. And that's the Tawheed of Rububiyyah, and it starts with me, although often in practice we start from the outer world and then go back to the inner world. But what we witness in the outer world, some people will resist this and say no, happening on its own. The laws are there, and now as laws do not have an independent external existence. The laws is only the way things are going on, are happening, are occurring. And so that occurring is happening by God's will. Water is not entering things and giving them life. So some of us, those who are more humble, more inclined to later accept the Rububiyyah within, they are going to say, yes, water can't be doing this. Water therefore becomes not only water, but water working in harmony with the rest of beings in the world. All that is the sign, the ayah that witnesses, indicates that someone else is giving life through water. Some people will say arrogantly, no, I didn't see anything else. I see water, therefore water is doing it, or it's happening according to some law, as if law has an existence on its own. Those who are more humble will say something else is going on here. And then we go from the outer world, we go to the inner world, and we start reflecting on our own, for instance, breathing, seeing, hearing, the way we are in the world, and we confirm it. Because in the beginning, in the Quran, we are our attention is attracted to the outer world, then we are asked questions about ourselves. And it is when we surrender within ourselves and we accept Rabb within, from within, then that the circle of affirming and confirming God being the Rabb of everything in the outer world as well, that circle is completed. There is no room for shirk there. So when people insist, those who you said like they claim to believe in God but are lazy, or say, or as if they are trusting God, but trusting God does not mean is not laziness. Those who know God are not lazy. Why? Because we know God through our action. It is through my breathing that I know my Rabb. It is through my thinking that I witness that I am being gifted with thoughts. If something creative comes to me, I realize that I'm being gifted, I'm being inspired. But if someone says, is being lazy, there is no need to do anything because God is, for instance, Razzaq, is the provider, then that is taqlid, that is just repeating without any confirmation. Why? Because in order to say that Allah is the provider, I have to do something, and while He's providing for me, other people will say, while I'm providing for myself, I realize that I'm not the one providing for myself, that I'm being provided. So without doing the providing myself, taking the action myself, I cannot do the witnessing. I cannot witness that the provider is Him and not myself. So those who are lazy, they are just repeating things without knowing what they're saying. They're repeating the conclusions, but they never tested them. They never confirmed them. And the others who are reacting are in a similar position, but at the other polar side, if you wish. They say we are doing it, and God created us, and now we are going to provide for ourselves and for our family. So both of them, for both those, how would you say, the two attitudes, God is not Rabb. He created in the beginning, and right now, one of them is wishing that he is the provider, and one of them is saying, how can you say he's the provider? Of course, you have to work for it. And since you work for it, therefore, whoever works for it is the provider. And then in this surah, we are told, as you are working for it, can you see that you are not the providers? Someone is providing you when what you are doing is only asking for provision. You can't make the earth, if you're a farmer, you can't make the earth grow things. You are only waiting for things to grow. We are only waiting for, I want to, if you're an artist, I remember I had a friend who did tadhib, which is, what is it when you decorate the calligraphy? And I used to say, just decorate it. She said, no, it doesn't happen like that. It said the decoration has to fit the passage that is written. And so I have to wait until I'm inspired. Something comes to my mind. So you see that artists also, they wait for things to be given. And you know that through writing, even if it's not something poetry or something, you think you know what you're going to say, but you don't even know how to say it until something comes, and it's like a green bulb, and you say, oh yes, this way I can say it. If I could do it from the beginning, why do we even wait for anything? We would just say be and it is. Only the one who has the power of be and it is the creator of everything. He has sovereignty and control of everything. He is the Rabb. So the key word here is Rabb, that he's not only God, but God is the only Rabb. And the Rabb is God alone. This equation is very important. And how do we, maybe one thing, if someone is not just arguing for the sake of argument, if someone is sincere and willing to understand, then you can give the example of breathing, for instance. I mean, if breathing is not mine, if seeing, thinking, hearing is not under my control, that means life is not under my control. And everything else that we think we are doing and taking action are all dependent on that life, on that breathing, on that seeing, on that hearing. How can I claim that the outcome is mine when none of the input is mine? Then those who are humble enough and willing to consider and reflect will take it seriously, because something very important is going on there. And the second very important point is that this world is passing. It does not mean only that one day I will die. No, that right now everything is passing. Everything is being recreated. All the atoms in our bodies, everything is being sustained right now. And even at a very macro level, few minutes before you ask the question, it's not here. It's past. So while everything is passing and flowing, and this flow is not under our control, we are subject to this flow. How can I claim that life is mine and the outcome of this flowing life is mine? It is only someone who does not reflect who can foolishly make a claim like that. And that's why it's called arrogance. That's why it is a delusion. It is a delusion.
Jazakallah khair, Yamina. I love the one about like the examples that you gave, especially about like writing, because all of us academicians, when you're trying like to to write something or to to present an idea, and then sometimes you're working on it and nothing happens, and then you take a break, you're walking around, and then all of a sudden everything comes into place, like it's like you're doing something else. But subhanallah, that's why the main theme in Quran is shahada. And that's why, like, the more you're looking for this theme in the Quran, this mindfulness or this theme, like you start noticing how God says, like, I have given you, I have given the sleepiness to you so that your body would rest. I have made you see them less in number and made them see you less in number. I have brought upon you, like, it's like, so again and again, the theme, like, when God speaks about Jesus, that Jesus says, I have raised the, bi'idhnillah, I have raised the dead bi'idhnillah, I have made the leper, I've made the diseased cured bi'idhn, because even a tendencies of believers, as a believer, our tendency is to forget this. And the example that came to my mind when you were offline, I was saying, oh, what is things that we always think that we're doing that we're not doing? But the thing that came to my mind is our kids. We always think we are raising our kids, like it's me, it's my work, it's like what I'm doing in. But but again and again we get reminded that that no, we are not. They're just an amana. We're responsible of an amana. We take care of the amana, but who is raising them? And this theme of keep looking, keep remembering, making shahada, like the word, like to make shahada, being an active eyewitness, is totally different than what was translated as to testify that that God is one, or to there's another English word for it, but ours is to witness something ongoing. And God is always reminding of that. And this is why the Quran, like that's why the who God is in the Quran is something for mankind. It's not just for us, it's for all mankind if they choose to. Jazakallah khair very much. Amina, jazakallah khair. Jazakallah khair, Zahra, for this beautiful question too.
Thank you, Zahra. Thank you, Alia.
Zahra, do you want to say anything?
Sorry?
Did you want to say anything? Yeah.
Oh no. Oh, that was great. Jazakallah khair. I love the I've wrote a few quotes down, like trusting God is not laziness, and I also like how the two attitudes is not there's still a discrepancy in understanding that, like, both of the attitudes doesn't completely doesn't understand God as Rabb. And I think that's those are two big points for me that are big takeaways. So jazakallah khair.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. Yeah, I also really like this notion of two extremes. On the one side, some people say, oh, I don't need to do anything, God will take care of it. And the same person wants to say that about things that she cares about. Like if she cares about good food, she won't say, I'll just put things together, somehow they'll she will follow the recipe well. Or if she's interested in a particular wedding dress, she will make sure to go to the right tailor or get from the right
sincere.
Yeah, but other things, God takes care of them. And so if somebody comes with that kind of question to you, I think you can just say, that is an extreme, that is a superficial way of looking at things, that God does it, so I won't do it. And you are going to the other extreme, saying the causes do it, and I don't, God doesn't have anything to do with this at this time. These are both very superficial ways of looking at the situation. And we need that balance, and that balance emerges out of, as they were saying, out of witnessing and surrendering. Because some things, I don't want to be mystical like Yamina, but as you were talking, some things can only be expressed to some extent, and then after that it is a balance that emerges as you genuinely
yeah, when you start experiencing them. That's why the shahada is a lived experience. And that's why the sunnah is to make shahada before you go to sleep, because to remind ourselves that this is the fruit of our whole day, is to express it in, again, state it and confirm it in words as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for the question, and thank you for the answer. Anybody else who has a comment or a question? Okay, so then we will inshallah stop here, and we will continue next week, and we will keep each other in du'as to be among those who are not deluded and who know their merciful Rabb every day, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair again, Dr. Yamina, and Jazakumullah khair everyone else, Sister Alia and Zahra, and everyone else.
Ameen, ameen, inshallah. Amen.
There's one little comment for my young person. He wanted to share the cowbird. Here we are. And bison relationship for the.
What is it? What is it, Isa? What is it, ya Isa? What is it?
Isa wants to share something?
What does the cowbird do? I know we're kind of out of time, but so this cowbird hangs out with the bisons. Bisons are in herds, and when they charge, they are very dangerous. But these birds just hang out with them as they are going around eating things. They go very close to its mouth just to catch the insects as they come out, as the bison meddles with the mud and the grass. And so because the cowbird is so busy on the go with the bison, it puts its eggs to other birds' egg nests, because it doesn't have time to sit on the nest. And what is you were speaking of, Yamina, you said, bird brain, we use it in English for not very smart circumstances, and subhanallah, that bird takes care of all the eggs in the nest. And what is amazing is those other species, they don't realize that, well, wait a second, this egg is different from my eggs. Why am I taking care of this? They actually do take care of its.
There is even one kind of bird, I forgot, that puts their eggs in other birds' nests. And when the bird, the new bird, the alien bird, let's say, hatches from the egg, it kills the others, and it's the one that's being fed.
Oh.
Yes. Subhanallah.
Subhanallah.
How does it know? It just came out of the egg.
That I'm different. And this cowbird, I think it goes back to what the mother does as a profession. Goes to bison, even though it didn't meet the mother. So all of these intersections between very wise, smart actions within not very smart actions, becomes a sign that somebody else is doing the planning, somebody else is doing the knowing and arrangement, inshallah.
Yeah, so that's interesting. It was raised by a different bird, but yet it goes back and does this thing that she was not raised, like she was not raised by her mother. Who's raising the babies? Who's raising it? So if it was the mother, the new mother who raised her and sat on her and fed her,
no, they will tell you, those who don't want to believe, they will tell you it's in the DNA. As if DNA is, you will think this DNA is some mysterious thing. It's just matter. It's matter. It's like saying it's written in the book, recipe book. Recipe book is not a chef.
And it requires to be written as well.
It requires to be written, but even, let's say, if we forgot, it's written, it's in the kitchen. You get food being put on the table. Who did the shopping? Who cooked it? They say, but it's in the recipe. That's what the DNA is.
Yeah.
Thank you, Isa. That was beautiful, Isa. Thank you very much.
Alhamdulillah. Good night, everyone. Jazakumullah khair again. Thank you.
Thank you.
And one last